Long ago, there was a small island that existed among the Peruvian Amazons. About 4 generations before mine, the third island was among a cluster of islands that floated above the Amazon River. These islands were known as the Muyui Islands. For over 10 years, the third island was home to my grandmother, Victoria. Having settled her farming land, the third island provided food and income to my grandmother and everyone who harvested her land. Harvest season was year-round, for the third island had the richest soil that was frequently renewed with every flood season. Life in the Amazons brought several interesting adventures to the lives that settled on the third island. These stories were best told by my grandmother, and now I will tell them to you. Before my grandmother found the third island, she and my grandfather settled by the Pastaza and Marañón River intersection. My grandfather, Carlos, was employed as a regulator for the fish conservation habitat that existed among those rivers. This location was far from the city, therefore Victoria set up a small farmland that would provide food for her family as well as for some of the villagers that lived nearby. One Monday morning, after a tranquil weekend, 2 of Victoria's helpers did not show up for work. After several days of being short 2 men, she set out to replace the missing workers. That same day, one of the 2 missing helpers showed up, not ready to work, but ready to retire. With a worried expression, the missing worker explained his absence. On a late afternoon, his wife left to the Pastaza River shore with a basket full of dirty clothing. She never returned since then. There was no sign of her and no sign of the clothing she brought to wash at the Pastaza shore. Victoria was filled with curiosity. Why would she disappear? She asked herself. She approached motor travelers that were stationed at the river shore to ask about her helper's missing wife. They had a glimpse of her. She was scrubbing her dirty laundry at the shore, on the fallen tree that sits above the water, they explained. That was just a few days ago. That was all they had seen of her. It was obvious that the missing wife did not intentionally run away from her husband. It occurred to Victoria to investigate what had happened to the second helper that was missing. Perhaps his absence had something to do with the missing wife's disappearance. Carlos, my grandfather, decided to pay a visit to this second worker, who happened to be his good friend. As he approached his friend's house, he noticed his friend's wife weeping at the entrance of the shack. She sadly told Carlos about her husband's disappearance. The last time she saw him was when he decided to take a day off from work. She didn't think much of it, for he didn't like to work much. He preferred to bask in the sunset while drinking his liquor whenever he had a chance. On his day off, his wife had laundry to wash at the Pastaza shore. Her husband accompanied her. There she set her buckets and baskets of clothing on the fallen tree that partially blended into the fresh Amazonian water. She scrubbed away while her husband drank his bottle of liquor. He rested on the same fallen tree that served as a safe, dry place for scrubbing clothes. He stayed behind to contemplate the evening sun and never came back home. As weeks passed, the villagers wondered what could have happened to the 2 missing people. Did they lose themselves in the forest? Were they devoured by a boa or a jaguar? Or did they run away together on a romantic adventure? All of these suspicions were soon overshadowed by a growing epidemic of missing people, wives in particular. wives that would disappear whenever they washed their clothes on their own at the Pastaza shore. Yet there was never a suspicion that the cause of the disappearances was someone among themselves. The most popular suspicion was that of a fairy tale, the story of the laundry thief that would use his witchery to seduce the village wives. They would run away with him and become one of his concubines. One bright morning, the mystery was solved. A village wife made her way to the Pastaza river shore to wash a load of laundry. Her husband, having heard of the rumored laundry thief, decided to secretly follow his wife to the river. As he spied on his wife, he noticed how beautiful she looked scrubbing away in the daylight, her dark skin glistening in the sun while she innocently was kneeling on the fallen tree that rested at the shore. He no longer felt threatened, he felt lovely, making mental plans for when the sun sets and leaves the couple together on their own. All of a sudden, his daydream was shattered. He witnessed the swift abduction of his wife, who was swallowed by the concealed jaws that rose from the comfortable fallen tree that rested on the shore. Meanwhile, on the farmland, Victoria and her helpers were harvesting an abundant amount of green plantains. They noticed a screaming, crying man running towards them. Almost speechless, he told the workers about the monster that lurked at the edge of the Pastaza shore, disguised as a fallen tree. He was hopeless and cried about his wife, knowing that she will never return. Taking charge, Victoria assigned 3 of her workers to assess the situation. Each were given a rifle and a machete. They made their way to the shore where so many wives had disappeared while washing their clothing. As the men approached the shore, they noticed it was as tranquil as usual, with the same still body of water and the same large fallen tree. The men were not fooled. They were warned of the creature that rises from beneath the large sediment of wood that resembled a fallen tree. Fearing for his life, one of the men immediately shot his rifle at the harmless-looking log. With that shot, he had awakened the beast. In a snap, the beast swung his enormous tail, leaving the 3 men shocked on the floor. As they stood up, they did not hesitate to empty their rifle rounds, attempting to kill the beast before it kills them. "It's an enormous crocodile!" screamed the man with the most sense. He was correct. This crocodile was as large as a young Amazonian tree, perhaps the largest crocodile ever recorded in the Amazon history books. He was a clever one, concealing himself in the same position with the same pile of debris he found around the shore, so that his potential prey wouldn't suspect anything. When the men found the rifles to be useless against the thick-skinned crocodile, they had no choice but to use their machetes. As one of the men lured the crocodile towards him, the other 2 jumped on top, puncturing the crocodile as many times as they could. They did not know where they were aiming. The creature was too large to differentiate any body parts. One of the men struck the heart, rendering the crocodile lifeless. I asked my grandmother what they did with the crocodile body after it was killed. She told me that a few men disposed of it in the middle of the Amazon River, but not before skinning it. You see, crocodile skin is very valuable and expensive in Peru. 3 motorboats worked together to transport the crocodile body to the middle of the Amazon River. As the lifeless crocodile descended into the river, the lives of those who were taken by this creature were finally laid to rest. And so life in the Amazons continued. Victoria continued to harvest her fruitful crops and experiencing, like a true Loretana, the different adventures of the Peruvian Amazons.